Hello everyone, this is Paukshte Fashion Workshop. I remind you that we post new videos every day. I also want to remind you that some of my video courses are already available. Buy them if you haven't done it yet. I would really appreciate your support. Today we continue working with an Yves Saint Laurent-style dress. It is a slightly loose sheath dress with inserts on the neckline, armholes, and on the bottom of the sleeves and the dress itself. There will be seams on the center back, two side seams, and two chest darts. There are no other seams except for those stitching the decorative details to the dress. I have already pinned the decorative details to the fabric. I've also drawn a decorative detail for the bottom of the sleeves, and later we'll cut a detail for the bottom of the dress itself. Today I'd like to show you how to cut the dress. In the next video, I'll show you how to take it, and then I'll try it on. I want you to see how the dress is going to look like. These are the decorative details. Here are the front, the back, and the sleeve. I'll cut them later. First, I'll cut the inserts. When it's done, I'll ask one of the tailors of my fashion house to double them with the interfacing material. Let's get down to work. Have a closer here. This is the neckline detail. Here's the center front. Make sure that the center front is pinned right on the lengthwise grain. This is very important. If you make a mistake, the detail will be spoiled. The width of the seam allowance is 7 mm. You should add the same seam allowance both to the front and the back. Don't add 1 cm. It would be too much. Be very careful. Each of the decorative details should be doubled with the interfacing material. Remember that you'll need 2 pieces of every detail. One should be attached to the right side of the dress and the other to the wrong side. This is the shoulder seam. This is why I've added 1 cm here. The insert for the front neckline is ready. Next, I need to cut the insert for the back neckline. The width of the seam allowance is 7 mm as well. I'll add 1 cm to the center back. I'll also add 1 cm to the main details. Be very attentive, please, when working with the seam allowance. It's very important. The design seems to be simple, but now you know that it's not that easy to sew this dress because of the inserts. As I've said, the seam allowance on the shoulder is 1 cm. This is the shoulder seam. The inserts for the neckline are ready. Next, I need to cut the inserts for the sleeves. 1 cm seam allowance to the side seams and 7 mm here. I don't like big seam allowances. I'm sure that 7 mm are enough. Such details would look very neat. People often ask me, why don't I make 1 cm wide seam allowances? When I was learning to sew, we were told to add 1 cm to each detail. You know that I don't do it anymore. I'll tell you a story. I got an amazing gift for the graduation from school. I got a suit. I loved it. You know what was the first thing I did? I ripped the seams in the lining open. I wanted to have a close look at the wrong side of the jacket. The seams in it were 7 mm wide. This is when I've decided that I will always make 7 mm wide seams. I'm cutting the second decorative detail for the sleeves. 1 cm seam allowance to the side seam and 7 mm to the round part of the detail. When new tailors come to work to my fashion house, the first thing I ask them is whether they can cut the seam allowances by side. I want everyone to learn to cut 5, 7 mm wide seam allowances, 1 and 2 cm wide seams by side. Take a piece of fabric and cut it by side. 5 mm, 7 mm, 1 cm. When you learn to do it, you'll be able to sew amazing high quality garments. Next, I need to cut the details for the bottom of the sleeves. They are 5.5 centimeters wide. You can make them as wide as you want. I can move this piece of fabric aside, and the sketch as well. What should we do next? Apply the detail to the sleeve and check if it's accurate. Do not forget to do it. You know what? I haven't added anything for the seam allowance. You should do it. Do not forget about that. The detail should be wider. It's okay, I'm making just a mock-up. You should be more attentive than I am. Next, I'll ask Natalie to double these details with the interfacing material. The yellow details are ready. Next, I'm going to cut the main details of the dress: the front, the back, and the sleeves. Let's have a look at the sleeve first. Do not forget to smooth the corners on the sleeve head. The lines should be smooth and beautiful. Have a close look at the dot in the sleeve head. I'll show you how to cut it accurately. There's something to pay your attention to. These are the points I'm talking about. I recommend you adding about 3 or 4 millimeters here. The additional ease will let the sleeve fit better on the shoulder. It's not clearly seen here, but I'll show you everything when I start cutting the details. Such tiny addition make a big difference. The sleeves would fit you much better in this case. If you don't add anything, the sleeves might be too tight. Don't add too much, just 3 or 4 millimeters. The sleeves will be more smooth and beautiful in this case. This is very important. Let's start cutting. The seam allowance on the neckline is 7 millimeters. I've also added 7 millimeters to the inserts. Seven millimeters to the armhole, 1 centimeter to the shoulder seam. Be very attentive when working with the seam allowance. You should be very accurate. The seam allowance on the side seam is 1 centimeter in my case. It's enough for me. You can add 2 centimeters if you want to. This is the center of the dart. 1 centimeter seam allowance to the side seam. I want you to understand that your dresses don't have to be absolutely the same. The fact that there are chest and waist tucks in the basic pattern doesn't mean that you have to make waist tucks and chest darts in all the dresses you make. Be creative. Change the designs however you like. Do not forget to mark the waistline. I've cut the front. Have a close look at the chest dart. When sewing garments of stretchy fabrics, such as jersey for example, you can move a part of the opening to the armhole for example. Or you can just make it a bit tighter. In this case, it's necessary to save the chest dart. Don't make it shorter. If you do it, this part will be baggy. The front is ready, so I can move it aside. Next, I need to cut the sleeve. Be very attentive, please. The seam allowance in the underarm seam is 1 centimeter. You know what? Even though I'm making a dress of modeling fabric, I think that I'll be able to wear it. I like the colors. What do you think? Have a close look here. I need to add 7 mm seam allowance to the drawn lines. The dart is going to be stitched according to the drawn lines. This is where it should end. Do not forget to mark it. Let's have a look at the sleeve. Do not forget to mark the front. Do it in the bow details. I also need to mark the point where the dart should be stopped stitching. This is very important. The sleeves are ready. I show you the cutting in detail for you not to have any questions left. Next, I need to cut the back. When it's done, I'll start taking the dress. I can't wait to do it. (7 mm to the neckline, 1 cm to the shoulder, Do not forget that these parts should be shaped with an iron. One centimeter to the side seam. I know that some ladies have very tight waists. Such loose dresses are not always suitable for them. In my case, this design is perfect. You know that my body is pretty perfect. It's square. Do not forget to mark the waistline in the details. All the details are cut. That's all for today. Next time I'll show you how to deck the dress and then I'll try it on. My name is Paukshte Irina. Be different and beautiful. Subscribe to my channel. Thank you. Goodbye.